Columbia University is one of the most expensive universities in the U.S. At nearly $1,900 per credit plus fees, costs can really add up for students. The university has frozen tuition hikes because of the pandemic, but some students say that's not enough. With an endowment worth more than $11 billion, some students want to know why the school isn't doing more to offset costs. Adding fuel to the fire, Columbia's endowment grew by $310 million since the pandemic began. Last month, the Columbia University-Barnard College chapter of Young Democratic Socialists of America decided to strike against what they call excessive rates. They plan to withhold their spring tuition payments. The university released this statement saying, "Throughout this difficult year, Columbia has remained focused on preserving the health and safety of our community, fulfilling our commitment to anti-racism, providing the education sought by our students, and continuing the scientific and other research needed to overcome society's serious challenges." Joining us now to talk more about this is Christian Flores. He is a Columbia University student and the leader of the tuition strike. Hi, Christian. Welcome. Great to have you with us. So what was the specific trigger that prompted you to say enough is enough, setting off this tuition strike?
Great to be here. Over the summer, Columbia announced that they would be freezing their tuition rates after initially planning to go through with their annual 2% increase. And what really did it for us was how they decided to pat themselves on the back, claiming that they were really progressive and that they were really looking out for students, when in reality, we know that they can be doing so much more with the amount of money that they have. And so we were particularly inspired by the organizing efforts at the University of Chicago, where they were able to strike and see a tuition freeze for themselves. And we felt that looking at peer institutions like Princeton, like Georgetown, who chose to cut their tuitions by 10%, that there was no reason why Columbia shouldn't do the same. And so we, in coalition with some other student groups, decided to come together and to actively try to leverage Columbia to do something about it.
And so this strike that's planned for spring tuition, just to be clear, isn't due yet, right? The spring tuition, right now we're still talking about the fall, but there's more behind the spring than just paying less for school during the pandemic. Can you also tell us about your efforts to bring light to the issue of student debt?
Sure, absolutely. And we think it's actually quite poetic that tuition is due on January 20th, when that's also the inauguration of President Biden. Tuition at Columbia is certainly expensive, and it's certainly an issue that affects us students, but it's also a consequence of the systemic issues with higher education in America. We think that tuition is a very big barrier for lots of low-income folks, and college is meant to be an engine of upward mobility for lots of people. And so we really hope to use this movement to inspire students across the country to take power into their own hands, to say that, hey, if people can come together and form grassroots coalitions, then we can actually have a seat at the table and leverage our institutions to really try to respond to our needs. And so we really think that while yes, this is a conversation that is currently centered in Morningside Heights, that it'll hopefully go beyond and go into the national conversation about the student loan crisis.
And Christian, the school does say that it provides some relief, such as, they now have instituted a $4,000 per semester off-campus living allowance. They are eliminating student employment expectations. I believe the school is also offering some free credits this summer if you're registered for the fall and spring semester. Does that not go far enough in your view? And have you experienced any of that aid?
Yes. So what Columbia likes to do is they will offer some benefits and then claim that they universally offer it to everyone. With respect to the $4,000 housing credit, they said that students would be receiving that money, and lots of people wound up signing leases to actually live off campus. But what wound up happening was, through some clerical manipulation of tuition and fees, people did not wind up seeing the full $4,000. And I know lots of folks who needed to come up with the difference between the $4,000 and the dollars that they actually wound up receiving. With respect to the summer tuition credits, For example, that's only offered to students at the School of Engineering and the Columbia College. But students at the General School of Studies were not going to be receiving that tuition credit for the summer. And so Columbia has this pattern of really appearing to care about its students and really having good PR about it. But when push comes to shove, they're not really advocating on behalf of the entire community.
And so what are some of the specifics your group is pushing Columbia to do to help students? As you mentioned earlier, some other peer schools, such as Princeton, have already reduced tuition at about 10%, I believe. Is that something specifically you're calling for as well?
Absolutely. That, an increase in 10% for the financial aid for students, and in addition to the waiver of the student employment for the spring. As you mentioned, Columbia was able to waiver it for the summer and the fall, but they have not yet publicly committed to doing so in the spring. In addition, if you read our demands letter, we're also calling on Columbia to amend its complicated relationship within the Harlem community. We believe that we have peak leverage and a unique moment in history, and there are issues that have gone way beyond back 2020 that pertain to Columbia. And so we, as a student group, really wanted to leverage this time to try to get Columbia to also address things like social investing with respect to its endowment and trying to be a more equitable employer within the Harlem community.
All right. Well, Christian Flores of Columbia University, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.